Hello, my name is Dr. Amy Marshman, and I am making this video creating an online version of the Survey of Art for anyone who has not taught an online class before, or for someone who has taught an online class but maybe just wants to see a different approach and just sort of explore their options. Now, like any class, you're going to figure out what works for you and you're going to do what you want. And that's totally fine. I'm not trying to tell you how to run your class. I'm just going to show you how I do it, and then maybe you can find some things that work for you in it, or maybe you can just look at this video and say, oh man, none of this works for me, but now I know what not to do. So that's up to you. A few things that I will note before I get into Blackboard and start talking about different sections. When you make an online class, even more so than an in-person class, it is really important to be organized. You have to have your schedule established ahead of time, and you can't really change it because it is online and students are constantly completing these assignments, and sometimes they do work ahead. So there's not as much flexibility, I would say, as an online class or as an in-person class. The other thing that is a little bit difficult about the online class is that you have to set it up ahead of time. Everything has to be ready to go when the class goes live. So the first day of class, everything has to be ready to go. This is a lot of work, and it takes a long time. Now, after you've taught the class a couple times, you can just copy your Blackboard class into the next class, and so that makes things a lot easier, but it still takes some time to get things set up, change deadlines, and things like that. But once you have it all set up, basically before the semester starts, you can kind of just sit back and answer emails and deal with problems and do grading. And so it is not as time intensive as an in-person class once you get started. Now, the first thing that you need to do to set up your class is you need to have Blackboard access, and you need to have a Blackboard class. So if you don't know how to do that, I would just stop this video right now and go right into finding some Blackboard training, because you really do need to know Blackboard to set up an online course. It's really important. But once you get your class, once your class appears in your courses and you're ready to go, then you can start setting it up. Another thing that's really important when you're teaching an online class is to have a very specific syllabus. Now, if you've taught in the classroom before, you know that this is also important. But it's even more so in the online class, because there's not as much like give and take. Like, you can't discuss things like you do in class. So you have to be very specific. Pretty much every semester I end up having to revise my syllabus and add in more and more guidelines. I know that that the students don't always read them, but it doesn't matter. You can say, if something goes wrong, you can say, look, did you look at my late work policy? It's in the syllabus. Check it right here. It's very, very specific. So it's really important to have that set up. The other thing that's really important is to have your schedule set up. So we'll look at that in just a second. So before you set up your schedule, one of the things that you need to think about, and this goes to your syllabus setup as well, is you need to think about what assignments are you going to have these students complete, because it is different than the in-class setting. So you kind of need to make sure that if you're doing the online lectures, like if you're going to do video lectures, you need to make sure that they're watching them. So you need to have online lecture quiz. So this is why, especially the first time that you set it up, it's going to take some time. But after that, it's a lot easier. So if we look at my syllabus real quick, have all the usual information. How I grade for this class, and it kind of just depends on if I'm teaching for a community college or if I'm teaching for this class is made for VCU, so this is teaching for a university. I sort of change what assignments I require. And that's basically because for the university, I have 90 plus students. And for a community college, I only have like 25 to 30. So I have to change kind of some of my assignments, or I will go insane grading. And you don't want to run yourself ragged grading, because then you don't produce good feedback. So for this class, this large 90-person class, I have online lecture quizzes, and basically what they have to do for that is they watch one of my lectures. It's just like this. It's like you're in class, you have a PowerPoint up, I ramble about art, and then they have to take a quiz on it. And it's multiple choice. Do not do fill in the blank unless you want to spend your entire life editing people's misspellings. So I would definitely recommend doing multiple choice for any quizzes that you choose to do. So I have the online lectures and those quizzes. I also do video quizzes. This kind of just enhances the online lectures and certain things that, you know, sometimes I might not talk the best. Like I might not know the most about certain artworks, and maybe I found a really good video that talks about it. Like I really love the Heidelsheim Door Khan Academy video, and they do a great job showing it really three-dimensionally. And so that's one of the videos I make them watch, and then they have to take a multiple choice quiz on it. Then the chapter quizzes, for VCU, I link through MindTap, and you can also get some training on MindTap, and that will help you if you've never used it before. And so that works out pretty well. It's pretty automatically linked, and you're good to go with that. The only thing you have to change with that is if somebody submits something in late, if you choose to accept late work, then you'll have to change it manually. But otherwise, you know, you're good. Then I also have a museum project. You can do exams if you want to. That's up to you. But I choose to do a museum project instead, and it's kind of like a scavenger hunt. So that's something that even though it's an online class, they're going to have to go to the museum and complete. And then I do essays. So for my community college, we do discussion boards. That's one of the requirements for an online or a hybrid class at a community college. But that's fine if I have 25 to 30 students. But I cannot deal with a discussion board that's going to have 90 students and then 90 students replying to each other. That just doesn't work for me. So what I've chosen to do this semester is I have several. I think it's like 8 or 9 essays that you have to complete throughout the semester, and then I just randomly grade 2 of them. So that's what I'm doing with those essays. Once you figure out what assignments you're going to do, then you need to make your schedule of assignments. This is just like in an in-class course where, you know, you have, okay, I'm going to lecture on this week and all that, but then you have to have your assignments specifically kind of written down. So what I found that works for me, and whatever works for you is great, is I make a schedule like this, where I have, okay, I just basically set the due date. So here are all the assignments that you need to complete by this day. You just have to be very specific. There can't be a lot of room for reinterpretation, because students will take advantage of that if there is. So just try to be direct as possible. I don't feel like you can't be more direct than here are your assignments. Complete them. And that's how I have the whole thing set up. So every week they know what they need to do. So I have this list under schedule of assignments, and so they can refer back to that. But then what I found has really worked the best is to have each week's work in a separate folder. So for week 1, you go into week 1, you go into week 1, and it reiterates what you need to complete for the week. And then it actually has all the assignments. And it has links to the MindTap assignment. So, you know, we're going to read this chapter in MindTap, so you go there, and then you're going to take a quiz. Most of the quizzes that deal with the chapters are in MindTap, but like for the introduction, this particular one didn't have a great quiz, so I made a multiple choice one for them to go through. And so this has like all the assignments that they need to complete. It's pretty straightforward. Nothing that they need to complete for the week is outside of this folder. And that really helps them. Another thing that really helps them is to make videos. I know that you are annoyed having to watch this video. And guess what? They're annoyed having to watch my videos too. But I've noticed over the years that if I write something down, put something in announcements, they are less likely to read it than they are to listen to a video. So I make an introduction video, and you can actually, if you have access to my Blackboard, you can actually watch my introduction video. So I make an introduction video that tells them how this class is set up, tells them where to go, what to do, what assignments they need to do, and it just sort of introduces them to everything. Because the online format is different for them. Even though they're all internet savvy, it's still an adjustment from I show up in class, I complete the assignments, I'm done. Instead, it's a lot of independent work, which is good for some students, but also really bad for some students. So the introduction video, I really feel, is kind of essential. Now, like I said, you're going to choose your own assignment, so set it up however you want. The way that I choose to do it is I have these quizzes that I mentioned, but I also have these online lectures, and they are exactly what they sound like. I'm just giving a lecture online, and they watch it and they take a quiz. It's just like my in-class lectures. I use the same notes. You can do it however you want. I will say that when I first started teaching this class, I didn't use the online lectures because I didn't have the library of online lectures that I have built up now. And I have a friend who doesn't use online lectures at all. She just does read your book, take a quiz, you're done. I had a lot of complaints when I did it that way because students really felt like they weren't getting a good grasp of the material. Some of them really don't like to read. I know it's college, you need to read. But they are just more internet savvy and they're used to videos, and so the lecture for them was more beneficial. For me, I am an auditory learner, so I really like listening to online lectures. I learned by listening and taking notes, and a lot of people felt the same way. So I've gotten a lot of positive feedback since I have added the lectures, but that's completely up to you. Now, if you do decide to do online lectures, it does take some time because you are recording every single lecture you have. You can use podcasts as well. I use a software called Screencast-O-Matic. Screencast-O-Matic, that's what I'm using to make this video right now. The reason I like it is because you can pause it. As you've noticed, I'm pausing in this video several times. You can pause it, you can rewind it, you can erase things. So if you make a mistake, if you pronounce something wrong, if you just get off track, you can go back and you can fix it. Now, the limitations of this is that you can only have 15 minutes of recording. But actually, that's okay, because your students can only listen to you talk for so long. So a 15-minute video is great. They can take a break. Maybe complete a couple questions on their quiz. I leave the quizzes so that they can go back into them and save it at any time. They just can only submit it once. So then they can do the next video whenever they're ready to do the next video. And that really helps because one of the reasons that you do online class is to fit into a complicated schedule. And so this allows students to complete the work when they have time. So this is my favorite software, hands down. I have used a couple others. VCU promotes Kaltura. I don't love it because you can't rewind it and you can't fix your mistakes, and I apparently make a lot of mistakes. So for me, it's really good to have this one where I can rewind it. But you can just find this one at screencast-o-matic.com. There you go. I've expanded my box a little bit so that you can see the website there. So I've kind of gone through this really fast, and I know I've taught this course like a million times, so for me it's sort of just second nature. But if you have any questions, feel free to email me. I'm happy to help you out because when I first started doing this, I was on my own, and it was not fun. So I do not mind helping other people out to try to figure out what works for you. One of the other things that I'll mention that helped me when I first started creating this class is you do need to have your schedule set up ahead of time. But if this is your first time teaching it and you want to do online lectures and you don't have them already yet, there's this wonderful thing called adaptive release. So you can set it so that these folders only show up when it's time for them to show up. So like you can release one folder a week. And I've actually taken an online class that did this. I think it's a good idea, and I've started doing it in my classes. Like my community college class, I have everything. They can just do it whenever they want. But for the university, I've decided to do it, just release one class a week. And I think that works out really well in the fact that they don't get overwhelmed. But for you, it's great because then you don't have to have all your online lectures set up. You don't have to have all your quizzes set up. You just have to have, whatever is ready for each week. You should have your quiz like placeholder set up. So like if you go into week 3 here, even if you haven't created the quiz yet, create a quiz and just leave it blank. But that way you can put it into your grade book so that it's like a part of the grade. So when you finally make it, you're good to go and you don't have to worry about it. And I'm just going to leave you here with my kind of key advice. Be organized, establish a schedule, establish specific policies, especially about late work. Like my policy is that I accept late quizzes up to 7 days, but you have to email me and let me know that you've posted it. Otherwise, you get a 0 because you have to manually update them in Blackboard. And then make an introduction video. If you're not going to make any other videos, fine, but the introduction video is really essential to show students where things are and what you expect from them and things like that.